Okay, I'm going to call, the hour of 10 o'clock has occurred, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chaplin. Here. Covert. Here. Evans. Here. Ozog.
Here.
Tornatore.
Here.
And Zig.
Here.
Okay.
Way over there. Can you speak up, Jim?
I thought my first name was Ant.
Okay, next, I'm going to turn it over to you. We have an employee recognition today.
Yeah, so we'd like to recognize Dan Nowak. He's our 15-year employee with the Division of Transportation. You can stand up, Dan. Dan's career path here at the county is a little different than some people come work for public service and then go to the private sector. Dan was in the private sector. We were able to recruit him to the public sector 15 years ago as a project engineer. And since then, he's been promoted to senior project engineer. So in that role, he oversees our team of engineers that do preliminary and design engineering. And that capital program is growing every year because of Rebuild Illinois and the actions by this board on our local gas tax. But in addition to overseeing a team of engineers, Dan is also responsible for some of our bigger major projects and leading those. So it's Fabian Parkway reconstruction in District 6. We got the Warrenville Road over East Branch Bridge replacement that I think when Dan started, we started that project, but we're getting very close to this. And then he's also been responsible for the 55th Street project in Downers Grove and the recent 31st Street in Oak Brook. But one of the things that he really does that people don't really take notice of, and so over the years, he's been kind of our point person with regard to preparing and submitting grants for federal funds. And over the years, Dan has been responsible pulling his team together in the data for securing tens of millions of dollars in federal grants over the years. So some of the projects that we've built, that we've talked about, that the one on the agenda today, Lamont Road, he helped secure those funds for that. So it's one of the things that other duties as assigned, and so that's one of them. So he's looking for 3% of the administrative charge for those, grants. But anyway, so Dan, congratulations on 15 years of service, and in 20 years, you too will be retiring like me. So congratulations.
Your chance to say anything about Chris?
No, I told him there's no speeches. No, it's a one-way street. It's public comment.
Dan, thank you so much. And here's to your next 15
years. Thank you.
Any public comment today?
None.
Okay. Next, I move for approval of the minutes of the Transportation Committee, August 1st, 2023. I have a second. Any comments or questions? Changes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, I move for approval of budget transfer 232686. Budget transfer 270,000 from automotive equipment to equipment and machinery. Funds needed for unexpected purchase of a vehicle lift for fleet maintenance to replace the lift taken out of service for safety reasons, and parts to repair the current lift are no longer available. Do I have a second? Second. Okay. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Okay. Thank you. All right. Next, I move for approval. We have procurement requisitions. Say that 5 times fast. Okay. I move for approval of DTP 009023. Recommendation for the approval of a contract to Mohawk Lifts LLC to furnish and deliver one vertical rise heavy-duty vehicle lift for the Division of Transportation for a contract total amount not to exceed $280,146.20 per Sourcewell contract. So moved. Okay. Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I move for approval of DTP 009123. Recommendation for the approval of contract to Energy City Corporation, doing business as Rack 'em Up equipment distributors, to install one vertical rise heavy-duty vehicle lift for the Division of Transportation for a contract total not to exceed $107,035. Not suitable for competitive bids, sole factory trained and authorized installer. I have a second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I move for approval of 232673. Recommendation for the approval of a contract to Harris Government for annual software maintenance and support services as needed for the period April 1st, 2023 through March 31st, 2024 for building and zoning, $9,306.52, Division of Transportation, $5,583.91, and Public Works, $1,861.30 for a contract total amount not to exceed $16,751.73, not suitable for competitive bids, sole source. have a second? Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next I move for approval of DTR 007823, delegation of authority to the county engineer to approve traffic control devices and signs for county highways. I have a second. Any comments or questions about this?
What have you been doing the last 12 years?
We are questioning this. So
We're memorializing what
okay.
we expect had been a delegation of fire authority, going through some things, working closely with the state's attorney as I'm transitioning. You know, we want to make sure that anything per statute that's appropriate for the county engineer. This one came up as something that we should memorialize. And so this memorializes the authority to install everything but altered speed limit signs. So we'll still bring altered speed limits recommendations to the board for your approval.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I next move for approval of DTR 007923, local public agency agreement between the County of DuPage and the State of Illinois Department of Transportation for improvements along County Highway 9 Lamont Road and County Highway 31 87th Street, section 16, no, I started 00232 00CH for estimated total cost of construction of $6,900,000, of which up to $5,359,000 is to be funded by the state, resulting in an estimated cost to the county of $1,541,000. Pardon me, I have a second. Any comments or questions? Excuse me. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we move on to old business. And today, John Loper is going to speak to us about Metra, PACE, CTA, RTA, and update us about a meeting that we had last week with CNAP.
Well, good morning, everybody. I appreciate the time. Apologies for the preamble. Many of you have probably heard some of this already, but many of you know that transit mobility services suffered greatly under COVID and the pandemic. In response, CMAP, the Metropolitan Agency Planning and RTA, engaged in a lot of deep reflection on transit and how the region would respond and recover. CMAP, in response, formed a three mobility recovery subcommittee group under the Plan of Action for Regional Transit called PART. The culmination of that work, as required by the General Assembly, is a report that CMAP will send out to the General Assembly and the Governor no later than January 1st, 2024. So the three subcommittees that have been working on this are called the System We Want. This is a network of systems focus, how to pay for it, or finance focus, and then how to implement it, which is a governance focus. Former Chair Cronin was invited to co-chair the How to Pay For It committee. But as we've noted, very few of the committee members, however, are representing Collier County. So only a couple of them from outside of 294, west of 294, have been engaged. So over the past 3 to 6 months, CMAP has worked to evolve kind of the fundamental points that they wish to convey to the Governor and the General Assembly. And changes can be seen each time they come out with a new presentation, and that is fairly frequently. So about monthly, we're seeing new updates to how people, what people are contributing towards how to look at governance and finance, especially. The letter that you have in front of you that is attached is a position paper that the Collier counties have been working on since late June. We have been collaborating through our peer organizations to find kind of common ground. Where are we in terms of mobility recovery, and what do we wish to contribute to the discussion points that the region is considering? So some of the key positions that we've outlined for you that are in that document include systems, recognizing and incorporating things like rideshare services and Ride DuPage and MinSeat Ride into the regional spectrum of mobility. In that, we're really talking about how do we incorporate their fare and transfer structures into official recognized transit in Ventra over the course of the next few years. will take some time, but this is something that we definitely absolutely need to do work on. Finance, under finance, counties believe that services should be commensurate with the financial contributions made through the RTA sales taxes and in the future contributions that are made under future funding packages. So it's one of the things that we have want to make sure that there's a recognition that we are requiring access to, to be given to counties. Jim has mentioned this repeatedly about Bartlett and Northwest DuPage not really having access to transit. Many of our other Collier County peers feel the same way. So there's a lot of places that are kind of voids in the public transit systems. So the fiscal cliff that is being projected by CMAP and by the RTA, $730 million in 2026, once the federal funding packages through ARPA run out. If we find the funds to cover this gap, it's really only pay for just the existing system. So what we're really looking for is, a broader, bigger picture. How do we sustain funding going forward? One of the options that we're talking about is we need to talk a little bit about savings through operations. Also, how to save in terms of capital, whether it's federal funding or collaborative funding with the Collier counties or other partners. It's something that we feel strongly that they're really overlooking as part of their message. In governance, we've seen a range of governance models that are proposed, including, not including the way that it's actually handled today. So what they're already saying to us is we're not going to operate the region, the RTA, the same way that we're doing today. We're looking at models that are going to be very different. And so they've presented to us a spectrum of models, none of which, however, really involve a lot of suburban and Collier County input. So we have strongly identified, through this paper and through other communications we've had with CMAP, the necessary steps to really include whether it's suburban transit authority, a district, some other type of way in which suburban Collier counties can be, represent 5.7 million people, can be a participant in decision making in terms of capital planning, route planning, funding, and like. So what you're seeing in there is in the letter and also in the position paper is a reflection of the things that we've found that are gaps within the CMAP work to date. As I say, this letter that will be sent to the General Assembly is coming due soon. We have heard that the letter will be, or the draft of their position paper and recommendations will be coming forth about September 6th. There's a meeting on September 13th at the MPO Policy Committee to consider that. There's another one at about a month after that. But we have a very short, very compressed time frame in which to really review and comment. So this document was really a good effort, a good faith effort on the part of the Collier counties to pull our thoughts together. Chris.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge John and his efforts for this. He really led the effort with his peer planners in the Collier counties and spent the better part of the last month trying to craft this and trying to bring not just 5 Collier counties, but 5 Collier chairs together thematically on what we support, and then to introduce that to our partners to the east, Cook County. And then President Preckwinkle did sign off on this. We did work closely with her staff. We feel we speak better as a contingent of counties and not just Colliers versus Cook, or the city. So that was a great collaborative effort. Chair Conroy very much advocated that we have to, if we're going to be asked our citizens, our residents to contribute to the $730 million in year 1, it grows to $1.4 billion by year 5. if we're going to be asked to contribute, then there needs to be some consideration and increase in services to the collar counties. The way we commute has changed drastically since COVID. It's not to and from the city, it's inter-suburban. And as John mentioned, one of the big things we're all aligned with is trying to have a central coordinator for dial rides and ride shares. It's ridiculous that you have to stop at a township or a county line, right? Because that's not where we're trying to get to, the county line, we're trying to get to a service. So we did ask that existing revenues be preserved. So our local gas tax, our MFT be preserved, but there are options to increase road use taxes. We've emphasized that if you're going to do that in a corridor where transit is an option, right? If it's an option on 290 to do managed lanes, that's great, but don't do it on 88, in Kane County, because there's no transit option. And so it's been a great effort. And John, thank you again for bringing this together. And I will say CMAP was very thankful to receive this letter. Many of the things they were aligned with, some things they're going to look at, but the fact that the executive director and her team came to meet us last week and could not say enough about, we've been asking for some bold statements and some input by, our leadership, throughout the region. And so ultimately, she's got to send a report to the General Assembly that needs to be endorsed by the MPO Policy Committee and the CMAP board. And so having these common ground statements goes a long way to help her get that report delivered.
And I also want to thank John. You've done a yeoman's work on this in the last few months anyway. Our meeting last week, or about 2-hour meeting with the head of CMAP and other transportation people that were with her. I was impressed by their knowledge of what's going on. It's huge issues that we're dealing with. When you hear $1 billion, that's all you need to know. But I think that the letterhead here is really impressive, because this really was and has been a really collaborative effort. When you see this many local counties on one letterhead, I think we're moving toward getting some really productive considerations made for this issue. Mr. Zay.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on this. I mean, this isn't a quick fix.
No.
This system has been broken 4 years.
40 years.
4 years. You know it. And I mean, the suburban stuff we have here, I mean, I'll laugh. We don't have a lot, like I said, the northwest part of the county. We don't have a lot of routes. The routes we do have, I mean, I had an old joke with Jeff Reddick. We used to take a picture. I mean, there's one person on the Pace bus, if that. I mean, there's not, I don't think anybody even knows where the bus routes go. There's no communication, no nothing. So, I mean, they've always been focused on the CTA, and their problems. And, it irritates me when I see, oh, we're going to redo this station on the red line. We're going to redo that. It's like, what are we going to do out towards us to maybe to get people going here? And since COVID, I mean, even the low ridership was before COVID out here in the counties, it just is. But after, I mean, it's even worse. I mean, it's going to have some major overhauls. And if they want this much money to continue to run a program that's just obsolete and bad. I mean, it's just throwing good money after bad money, and it's just not going to work.
The impression that CMAP has given me is that they do understand the gravity. We're looking at a really changing workplace. Staying at home, working from home has changed things immeasurably, funding issues, et cetera. So I felt very confident about their grasp, but also that their ears are wide open and they are listening to what the suburban groups. We need to have definitely a seat at the table and parity in how we receive services for our money. So it's really valuable. So Member Chaplin and
Thank you.
Member Cahill.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off what Jim said, many years ago, when I was public transit chair, we talked about pace and that we have stops, but then we have no infrastructure to the stops, right? So there's no sidewalks, there's no shelter. So how do you expect people to use the limited pace service that we have when there's not even a safe way to get there, or there's no shelter? So I'm very excited about this, because I think if we work regionally, and hopefully they can really come up with a plan that addresses the new work from home and maybe the new routes, getting people to grocery stores, getting people to medical facilities, things like that, where they really need to get. So,
and the impression I got, I think anyone in public transit over the next decade is going to have to be very nimble And that's where you look at maybe not fixed route, you look at door to door or the last mile, so many issues to be dealt with. But I just felt we had a very positive meeting last week.
Right.
So the fact and this collaboration.
Yes.
Member Cahill.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. My only comment is I really am pleased that Chairman Conroy is protecting us in DuPage County, because this is a huge, huge expense. And we cannot, we have to have, we have to look at exactly what our needs are, and we can't really just look at the CTA and that they have so many problems there. We really have to be careful that we're not stuck with a big amount of a increase in expenses, and I'm glad that she's going to look at that. It's a major problem, and I don't want to have. We are fiscally responsible, and we're doing great in DuPage County, and we really don't want major problems with. There's no way any taxes will be raised or anything to support this.
And we want transit that's going to be positively impactful, economic development, moving people from jobs, et cetera. So, but our needs are definitely very different from Chicago. So, but I think very strong dialogue is going on and very, very collaborative. So it's been positive. Well, thank you, John, again.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, next we move on to any new business. Mr. Zay.
It's kind of old business. We had those residents came and said there was an email sent about a trail on Winfield Road. I never received it. Could someone forward that to me?
You know what? Remember we talked. We'll have a conversation.
Have problems with getting the emails?
Yeah, something with yours, I think.
But it's not. But Chris, I even went in and looked in my Outlook on my accounting computer, and it wasn't there either.
Okay, because
You're talking about Winfield Road.
Winfield Road.
Okay. And Chris and I are meeting tomorrow morning to discuss the response that I got.
Because I have to say, if anybody's been on there, that is probably one of the most treacherous stretches of road that we have out there.
But
any kind of path is not going to be easy. You have Cantini there. You have high traffic volume. We have enough problems on that turn there at Mac and the other street, Purnell there. I mean, it's just a very dangerous area out there.
It's not going to be an overnight engineering solution. So we need to talk about.
No, like I said, there's electric there, there's Cantini there, there's right away, there's trees, I mean, right now, I don't even think that is a path. That's just it's crushed on the side of the road. I mean, it's up against the curb.
Somebody has been there in the past and did something. So
the county,
it's
years ago the county installed the limestone screenings many years ago, but that's not a long-term solution for us. And so now that these trailheads have opened up right at Mac and the Forest Preserve St. James, it makes sense to look at the east side, and try to make a connection out there. And so talk to Bill and Dan and their teams, and this is something that preliminary engineer, we can start it tomorrow, get something going, get some surveys done, because as Chair Ozog and others realize, it's not just have maintenance go out and put something out tomorrow. It doesn't need to be engineered.
A lot of access. There's been fatalities there. I mean, then the grade goes down. I mean, it's going to be
more major than you would think.
Yeah, it's not. I think these people think it's just
put a path in.
Putting a path in.
Although
I mean,
one of the people speaking in public participation last week did note about they're aware that this is not going to be a piece of cake. They talked about utility poles, et cetera. It's also a mile and a quarter, I think. So it's a pretty substantial. It's not repairing a few blocks of sidewalk or
right. It's not that little mouse they're thinking. It's
not
I don't think there's one stretch of road that's straight there. There's
no, and it
maybe coming off of Roosevelt, but after that, it's all.
And it is dangerous too. So we're going to have to think about some kind of.
Okay.
I don't know what. That's where we start. But Chris and I are talking tomorrow morning. So.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll check on the email. I'll get back to you on that with Anthony.
And I'll copy you on my response that I'll be sending.
Thank you.
Wednesday or Thursday. Okay. Now I've said that out loud. So okay. Any other new business or old business? Okay. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Wow, that's right.
I understand you don't want to leave.